north, stings the corner. You know it's coming. You still can't stop it.
Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 8 o'clock. It's the lacrosse rundown. And yes, the lacrosse season collegiately may have come to an end, but that does not mean we are stopping here. It's ESPN's Jay Alter. It's me, Charlotte North. We have a special guest lined up for today's episode. But coming off the heels, no pun intended, of the conclusion of the NCAA women's lacrosse tournament, North Carolina wins the title. We just finished up an awesome 4 days with the ESPN crew. Jay, how are we feeling?
Well, first of all, what a special season. Like, it all comes down to an epic title game, and it was the ACC champs against the Big Ten champs, which I always find fitting. The two top conferences winners going at it for a national championship. But you take the season in totality, and I do feel like, big picture, the sport took another massive step forward. You have a record attendance for the championship game, a semifinal record since 2002. And I really thought the level of play, not just from the two teams playing on Sunday for a championship, but all season long, really elevated. And it was a special season to be a part of, not just calling it with you for ESPN, but this show and hearing from all of you and your passion and your thoughts. It really felt like it was the perfect season in many ways. And obviously it was the perfect season for North Carolina, 22-0, the Invincibles. I mean, to never lose a game when you step out onto the field is something so special.
It's so underratedly hard to do that. You come into February as a team and you have an identity and you have goals set, but the way you look in February is not how you look in May. And to go in, week out, and tackle each game on that schedule that they had and come out with a win. Of course, when you ask them where they feel like they've improved, there are many different areas in which they thought that they improved, in different personnel moving around and different strengths of each unit. But at the end of the day, every time they stepped out to compete, they ended up with a win, which is a tremendous accomplishment. So congratulations to that entire team. It's always so special to get to see championship weekend. And I feel very lucky to be able to have it from the perspective of the booth with you and with the Hall of Famer, Sheehan Stanwick Burch and Dana Boyle. We get such a unique perspective on this weekend that everybody waits for all year long, that everybody has their eyes on at the end of May. Memorial Day weekend. It's a holiday weekend where we honor all those who have served in the military. And it's just such a unique tradition in sports. But to get to see the culmination of all this hard work from all these athletes to try to make it to that final weekend, it's remarkable to see up close.
And the fact that the men and the women were together at Gillette Stadium, which was awesome. You know, I know there's been conversations. Do you love the NFL stadium or not? The pros of an NFL stadium are, it does feel big. It feels special. Yes. And we felt that from both the men's and the women's side and the fans that showed up. It felt like a huge occasion, and it should feel that way. And I think the play on the field for me, just taking a look at the women's side to start, North Carolina, you had said it throughout the broadcast, Charlotte, and you're totally right. We feel like they're there every year, and the reality is a lot of these players hadn't been. Outside of Nicole Humphrey and Brooklyn Walker-Welch, nobody on that Tar Heels team had played in a championship weekend. So that first quarter against Florida, yes, you could see it was nervous, like that nervous energy that they just needed to get out of their system. And then once they did, 18 unanswered goals, which is unheard of. I still think it's a championship weekend record. We haven't been able to verify it, but 18 in a row is unbelievable. And then
insane.
And then to go up against, and then Northwestern BC, epic game. Northwestern comes back to earn their way in. And it just felt like North Carolina was not going to be denied. And it felt like once they got that first quarter against Florida over with Charlotte, when they played their A game, nobody could touch them.
You're right. It felt like they were clicking at every part of the field. And the one area, for those of you who missed the first quarter of that first semifinal game, Florida was up 4-2 at the end of the first. And then Jay spoke of it, but the run that the Tar Heels went on was one of the best we've ever seen in sports. To be able to be on that stage and to have practically no mistakes from then on out, and to maintain draw controls, have a majority of possession. And then when Florida's offense did get the ball, the defense hadn't gotten a lot of reps. Goalkeeper Betty Nelson hadn't seen a lot of shots. They still were making stops. And then, you saw a lot of North Carolina's bench come into the game in that third and fourth quarter, and they provided another spark. It just showcased their depth on the whole. And then that Boston College Northwestern game, it was incredibly exciting. It's a rivalry in this sport that seemingly always delivers, and it delivers in the regular season. Since they're in different conferences, they play early in the season. They typically play in February, maybe even early March. But then they meet again in the postseason, and it's usually on the biggest stage. This is the matchup that the past two national championships have been, Boston College and Northwestern. And two Hall of Fame, without a doubt, head coaches, Kelly Montehilar and Acacia Walker, and the X's and O's, the game planning, the chess match, the high-level athletes out there on the field making plays. The stadium, you mentioned the crowd, record-breaking on Friday night at the semifinals. The crowd was engaged from the first whistle to the end of that game. And a lot of that speaks to the play on the field, but a lot of that speaks to how much talent these two teams have and how capable they are of delivering big games.
And I think you need to put the Northwestern fourth quarter comeback in context, Charlotte, because they're doing this against a team that is 7-0 in national semifinals, had been to 7 straight national championship games, and had an 11-6 lead. So that is near impossible to come back against, and yet they found a way. 6-0 surge. It was all about the draw with Sam Smith.
Yep.
I thought the defense, Jane Hansen, anchoring them was phenomenal. Maybe the best unit we saw on Friday night in the semifinals was that Northwestern defense to grind it out, keep them in it, and then ultimately shut the door in that fourth quarter.
And let us know what you guys think in the comments right now in the live chat, because Northwestern defensively, we've seen them for a lot of years, a lot of games this season. They played their high pressure zone defense that's suffocating. And Jane Hansen, who you mentioned, she was the MVP of the Big Ten tournament. We talked about her on our show a couple weeks ago during conference tournament time, but she usually plays in that top part of the zone, the disruptor who likes to go out and create havoc and come up with cause turnovers. They flipped their game plan. They played in a man-to-man defense, and Jane Hansen continued to deliver in her one-on-one matchup, in her ability to create turnovers when her team needed it. We saw in the national championship, she scored a goal. She came up with, so many moments in that championship game where it was a near automatic goal for North Carolina on a fast break, and she would come in diving hustle plays to get a tip on a shot or a back check in, and she was incredible. But I think you mentioned Sam Smith. Her and Jane Hansen were the two X factors for this Northwestern team. Not just this weekend, but I think all season long. Sam Smith at the draw control had one of the best performances in terms of controlling the ball and being able to place it in multiple spots. And she also had the game-winning goal on Friday night against Boston College. They were both phenomenal performances.
And I think Boston College should get an assist, an ACC assist for North Carolina's national championship win, Charlotte, because they drained Northwestern on Friday night. And I don't think Northwestern, in such a tight turnaround, was able to get their gas tank back up to 100%. I think they went into the championship game probably at 80, 85%, whereas North Carolina, they were up 15 goals in that fourth quarter against Florida. They got to rest all their starters in the fourth quarter, so they were a lot more fresh. And I think in a championship game, that probably was the difference. Now, I don't want to take anything away from North Carolina, because I think they are a worthy champion. Obviously undefeated, perfect season. They get all their flowers, and we'll give it to them. But I do think Boston College forcing Northwestern to play as competitively and as hard as they did for the entire 4 quarters of that game, particularly in that fourth quarter, to come back and win. I just don't think Northwestern was able to find their best self on Sunday.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The atmosphere was electric, and when you're playing in the Final Four, that's a tight turnaround. You see a lot of these teams throughout the season, they schedule a Friday, Sunday situation for them early in the season. We saw North Carolina take a Midwest trip. They went to Northwestern 2 days later, they turned around and they played Notre Dame, both on the road, to sort of simulate that kind of weekend, championship weekend, where you have a tight turnaround, you got to recover quickly, and you got to shift your mindset and focus to a different team, a different game plan as you head into to scout somebody else. So you see more and more teams do that each year to try to prepare yourself for that moment, to turn around from a Friday night game that could go down to the wire where you're extending everything that you have, and then you got to turn around and play at noon on Sunday, which is, even shorter than 48 hours. It is no easy task.
And I just thought North Carolina, one last thought on the top-seeded Tar Heels, who end this season undefeated, they showed no weaknesses. You might be able to get them for a couple of possessions, Charlotte, but over the course of a 60-minute game, do we have an edge against them in the draw? No. Do you have an edge against them going up against their defense? No. I mean, Sam Forrest was spectacular on Madison Taylor holding her scoreless.
She was.
Do we have an advantage with their offense? No. I mean, I actually thought Northwestern played as well as you can play against them, and they still managed to score 12 goals.
I thought the one edge that Northwestern might have had on Sunday was at the draw control circle with Sam Smith, with Madison Taylor, and Sammy White on the circle. That unit is a veteran unit that's played together for many, many years. And we saw what they did in the semifinal game. And then enter Sophie Student playing the best at the draw control that she has all season. Enter Kaylee Harden and ACC Freshman of the Year, Eliza Osborne. I thought they were phenomenal at the face-off at the draw control circle. They commanded their presence from the jump, which I did not expect.
All right. You mentioned special guests. We get to bring in the Hall of Famer, Sheehan Stanwick Burch. Reunited. It's only been a couple of days. I already miss you, Sheehan.
We finally got our wish.
Feels like I haven't seen you guys in so long. With you guys, finally. I'm so glad you asked me to be part of this.
Thank God Mrs. Burch is here.
The Three Musketeers are back.
We are back, better than ever. We've just given a little bit of a breakdown of our thoughts on the national championship game. Now that we have 48 hours to digest what we saw on Sunday, I'm curious what you thought when you think back to the game and North Carolina's undefeated season.
It's wild. I mean, we knew how good UNC was, I think, at the beginning of this year. Like, it was really impressive, especially with the Humphrey sisters. I feel like the first games that we were all started talking about, it was like, wow, like Chloe in particular is legit. And the way that Ashley's working with that whole offense is going to be something special. It's so hard to go undefeated. So if you would have asked me, would they go undefeated? I would have thought they would have slipped up, and they proved time and time again that they were the better team. So, but I still am surprised. I am surprised that we didn't see Boston College. I thought the Northwestern performance on Friday night, that game sticks out to me in terms of like the most emotion and kind of fun. The back and forth, those momentum swings were like really terrific. And I think a great display of the sport. And you saw the thrill of victory with Northwestern with the comeback, and then the agony that Boston College felt. I don't feel that bad for them because they just won the national championship last year. So but still, it hurts. It hurts, and I think it probably even hurts even more so when they have had that taste of victory. But Northwestern, I mean, I caught the tail end of your conversation, and I agree. Like, just North Carolina was the better team that day, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that Northwestern wants back from that game. But they competed. I really did think possession was going to be the key to that game. And the one area that I think you guys talked about also was the draw, that I thought that Northwestern would have the edge. And you just saw the depth, like just every player kind of step up. But it was so fun. It was a great way to end the season with a dominant North Carolina performance. But even today, like when I'm walking around town at the gym, like all these moms were coming up and saying like, oh my gosh, like how good is North Carolina going to be next year? Like everyone is back. Like it's just going to continue. So it was great. It's great to always have just the lacrosse fan community be so excited about the results as well.
Mrs. Burch, she is the face. And if you have your lacrosse thoughts in the community, please go find Mrs. Burch and give her your thoughts. We just talked about the record-setting attendance at the Final Four. In terms of stadium, NFL venue, and the atmosphere this past weekend, where do you rank that on your list since you've been calling this big game for so long?
The weather gets like a negative. You didn't
like the nor'easter on Thursday night, Shan?
No. It felt so good to be like actually feel hot coming off the plane, getting into Baltimore. I mean, we can't control the weather, but I clearly would have. It's great when you're playing Memorial Day weekend, and the sun is shining, and it feels like the kickoff to summer. I thought the environment was really cool. I prefer personally a smaller environment. But even like, and we mentioned on the broadcast, when we drove in to watch the practices for the women while the men's games were about to start, being part with the men and seeing all their fans, like we don't really get to enjoy that from the women's side because we're at the stadium 4 hours before the game starts. So we don't get to see the fans march in. So I was able to watch all the kids with repping all the 4 schools with their gear on. The Penn State had the flyover with their "We Are Penn State" banner. Like you could hear like the tailgates. So got to witness it more as a fan perspective, even though we were tracking what the women were doing in their practices. So I loved it. It was awesome to have a record-breaking crowd. And I also think, we saw in the stands on Sunday a lot of people repping the men's gear, the Maryland sweatshirts, the Penn State sweatshirts, Syracuse, the people that stayed the entire time, Cornell, that were there to watch the women's game. So I love that overlap. But I go back, and I know Charlotte it's not your favorite memory, but that Hopkins national championship, you were playing in it, which you have to agree that the atmosphere was amazing. May not have been the result that you wanted, but I loved that pack house and like feeling like we were part of all that.
Yeah, I agree because it felt much more condensed. So you could literally hear and feel every part of the stadium at Johns Hopkins when it was a sold out crowd.
And looking ahead to next year, Northwestern is going to host, and I looked up their capacity is 12,000. So if everybody had so much fun and said, let's do that again next year, you're actually 2,000 under. Maybe they'll do standing room or something, or the fire marshal will be, let's get this to 15,000 somehow. But in terms of seats, it's only 12,000. So that'll be very interesting looking ahead to next year. And Northwestern, having just lost, not that we need to jump a year in advance, that'll fuel Maddie Taylor's fire going into her senior year. They're hosting championship weekend. I would not be surprised if we get North Carolina Northwestern again.
I know. I mean, can we already look that far ahead? I mean, it's crazy. I can't believe Maddie Taylor's back. I mean, she's a name that we've been talking about forever. It seems like forever, and just, has one more year, record-breaking season. That was also that stood out this year in 2025. All the different records that were broken, from the assists to the freshman records, and then Maddie Taylor's goal-scoring record, 109 goals. I mean, I know we say it every year, like, can that happen again? Will somebody else be able to break it? I mean, she's got the chance that she can break her own record, which is super cool. And I loved watching Rachel Clark and Maddie Taylor go against each other, because that was a unique situation where you get to see them fight. Somebody's going to end their career. Where's that tally going to end?
Do you, Sheehan, think that Maddie Taylor going scoreless in the championship game affects her Tewaaraton chances? Because we always said, they're probably going to give it to, or at least you and I did, they're probably going to give it to whoever ends up with the NCAA single-season goals record, Maddie Taylor or Rachel Clark, and whoever wins that semifinal. Does the combination of Taylor going scoreless and then Chloe Humphrey scoring, what'd she end up with, 11 goals throughout championship weekend, 7 in the semifinal, 4 in the championship, and UNC winning, does that, how do you handicap, I guess, the Tewaaraton?
Well, for the record, I don't have a vote, and I have no insight. And so even though I'll be there on Thursday, I don't.
She'll be on the mic, though.
I have no idea who's going to win. It is very interesting, because if you would have asked me before the tournament, the national championship weekend started, I would have said it's going to go down between Maddie Taylor and Rachel Clark. And because of the goal record, and kind of regardless, whoever kind of won, if Rachel Clark had a big game and she had the record, even if she didn't make it to championship weekend, still could have thought that it could go to somebody that wasn't in that title game. With Chloe Humphrey's performance, though, it was sensational and better, the best I've seen her play the entire season throughout the weekend. And she put her team on her back on Friday night and just showed that she can score in different ways. It's not just all about, getting the feeds from Ashley. She can create her own shot. I would not be surprised if Chloe Humphrey gets the Tewaaraton. Now, it's not supposed to be who wins a championship type award. We have seen, though, if this is the 25th anniversary, that typically it is kind of how you perform in the tournament. And because Maddie Taylor didn't have her best game, even though she had 4 assists in the title game, it was not her best performance. And I do think that hurts her. If she had scored, though, 3 or 4 goals and lost and had the assist, I think it would be hers. But because, I don't know, it kind of tips the scales to me to Chloe Humphrey. But record is pretty amazing, 109 goals.
Yeah.
So I don't know which direction and the whole body of work, because it is supposed to be a whole body of work.
Right.
And Maddie
Yeah.
Taylor's efforts on the draw
Yep.
where you cannot discount them. Her ride, the ability to get the ball back. I mean, we saw Chloe Humphrey also.
Yeah, both of them.
She does an excellent job and she turned Maddie Taylor over at a critical point in the game. So they're both great players. I don't necessarily think it needs to be an award that you have to fill every stat sheet. Like, it can be just like, what kind of player, if you have one person to pick, who do you want on your team? And that's how I feel like it needs to be, and not necessarily somebody that touches all aspects. But it'll be interesting.
The margins are so thin.
This feels like the closest it's been in a very long time. You tell us, because I know you've done it for a number of years, Sheehan, but is this the most in the air it has been going into the Tewaaraton ceremony?
I mean, I black out like every year. Like I don't really remember, but I can't remember, and I'd have to go back and look. But we had all 5 finalists in Final Four weekend, and I don't know if that's happened in a long time. That doesn't stick out to me as having that, because I really kind of thought, if like a Shea Dolce has a monster performance, like it could easily be her award. So I feel like it was the most up in the air before this weekend, and all of the 5 players would have their chance to make their case. But it does feel pretty tight, because I really don't know. Like, and I don't want to know until I get there.
Till you open up the envelope.
Yes.
I mean, something to be said about Shea Dolce too, because her numbers statistically, compared to Megan Taylor, who won it as the only goalie to ever win the award in 2019, her numbers were better than Megan Taylor's that season. So it's remarkable what all 5 of these players have done.
If Dolce beat Northwestern and then had the performance Delaney Schweitzer did, 17 saves in the national championship game, we're probably saying it should be Dolce. So it is crazy. I think one last thought on the Tewaaraton. We did see on the men's side the Thompson brothers win it. Could they give it to Ashley and Chloe Humphrey and be the Humphrey sisters? Because it was funny, I was looking at North Carolina's stats today. Ashley did finish with the most points, more than Chloe. So, and
she had all the assist breaking records. I don't see them doing that again. But Ashley was another player before this weekend. I would have said she could easily win it. I mean, like, with her ability to make that offense flow, they didn't need her and opted to use her in different ways, which I think we saw from that ACC tournament when they pulled her out when she was being face guarded, and UNC still beat Boston College. That made me realize how good UNC was. Like, I kind of thought up until that point, Ashley Humphrey is not involved in the offense. There's no way that people are going to get, these scoring looks. And they were able to figure things out. So that was the most impressive thing, I think, about the UNC team that I witnessed throughout the season. But if Ashley if she had huge numbers this weekend as well, they kind of got buried along with everyone else's performances. And it wasn't necessarily a super close title game that her numbers didn't stick out to get all the highlights. But I would have said she could have won it. Like, she was kind of like the lead for a large part of the season. So it really could have gone either way. And then Rachel Clark also, I mean, like, her ability to, at times just dominate games, create her own shot. The number she put up with having players like Emma Pinto, McKenna Davis also, like, that was, it wasn't like those were, it was an interesting attack, and she still was chasing or beat the NCAA record this year, and then came in second to Maddie Taylor.
All right. One thing we wanted to bring up is, through all this awesome experience and environment and atmosphere that we had at the Final Four this weekend at Gillette, we were all there. The men were there. D1, D2, D3 men were there. The Division II and Division III women's programs were not on site at Gillette. They were playing in Virginia, but we saw a clip from the Tufts women's lacrosse program. So we're going to roll it really quickly here and then get your guys' thoughts.
Question for you, Courtney. You've been here for 11 years. When you looked across the sideline today, looked up in the crowd, a sea of blue. I mean, it was loud, great support, lots of alums, lots of parents. As the head coach of this program, just talk about that support, what it means to you to have so many special people back here in Salem to support you guys.
Yeah. Salem does a great job with this championship, so I hope anything I'm going to say doesn't come across offensive, but this is a hard place to get to. And the NCAA needs to do something about accessibility of the championship. We had an incredible crowd, but our men are playing for a national championship in front of all their alums tonight. And that's an issue. And I was hoping to say this when we won. I have notes prepared, because I think it's a real thing we got to talk about. I promised these girls that if we won a national championship, I was going to fight for equity. I'm going to do it either way. It deserves some attention. And again, Salem and Roanoke College do a fantastic job once we're here. But this is a hard place to get to. We had 4 alums here today. I had hundreds reach out that would have been there in a major city. Our men get to do that. And there's an accessibility issue for the Division III lacrosse championships that is inequitable that we need to address.
Well, it's great to see the passion. That's something we all share, is just the passion for the sport, and to take that opportunity to point out the inequity, because the men's Division II and Division III championships were at Gillette and the women's weren't. They were in Salem, Virginia, and nothing against Salem, Virginia. But think about it from the Tufts perspective. That's an easy drive from Tufts to Gillette in Foxborough, to whereas Salem, you're really only getting friends and family. So I do feel bad, and I don't have the answer for why that wasn't the case. I don't think any of us do. But how can we see that going forward? How can there be change going forward so this doesn't happen again? I think would be the positive to come out of this.
Yeah, I don't know all the decision makers. I mean, I've seen it done. When I played in the Final Four in 2001, it was a D1, D2, and D3 women all played together. And that was interesting. The men weren't at the same venue. So it all, like next year, the women are going to be at Northwestern, the men are going to be at UVA. So it gets separated by gender next year, just depending on who the host site is. It would be great to have an all-encompassing event. Now, just a place like Gillette was able to field that with multiple practice facilities. You know, it all depends, I think, on what you're working with. I hate that they felt slighted. I hate that they felt like they weren't able to support their men's team and the men's team wasn't able to support them, and that the alumni and everyone. So that's it's a tough situation, and I hope they figure out who the person is that can make those decisions, and to be able to have like more of a lacrosse festival. I mean, I think the more people you have and more lacrosse fans there, like it certainly benefits everybody, and especially if you can tie in Mother Nature to have a beautiful lacrosse weekend that people want to sit outside for.
And I do think in 2027, Sheehan, we have the blueprint. Have all the men, Division I, Division II, Division III, all the women, Division I, Division II, Division III, in, I would say, either Philadelphia or Baltimore. It should be one of those two places. It should be all together. It should be an absolute party the entire weekend. Get as many lacrosse fans there. You could even do it not at the same facility. So like in Baltimore, you could have it at Homewood and the Ravens Stadium, right? Or you could have it in Philly at where the Eagles play and where the Union play, that beautiful soccer stadium right on the water. Like, we need to have some problem solving in the room, but with the goal of having as many lacrosse fans in one city as possible. I totally agree with you.
Well, anytime you have the overlap, I mean, the women broke the record, the attendance record, and I think that's a large part. It's one, because the sport is growing. It helped to have Boston College, I'm sure, certainly there to draw some fans, but also we saw first with our eyes the overlap, the men's fans wearing their team's colors and sweatshirts that came to the women's game. So you would have that the more teams that you have there, and I think it just benefits.
Yeah, my vote is Union Stadium in Philadelphia, or Annapolis, Maryland at Navy Memorial Stadium, or Hopkins. I love that field as well. But I think that those are the perfect size venues to have a lot of resources around you, whether it's at the school itself or it's a field nearby to practice at, like you mentioned, Sheehan. But I think I credit the Tufts players and coaching staff for using their platform in as hard of a moment as that is, to be able to recognize the platform that they have to speak out on this inequity and to shed light on it. I think it's important to have this conversation and to continue to talk about it. Even though the season is over now, I think we got to continue the conversation as we go on and build to next season, and little ways that we can be better, including where you're hosting all divisions and all genders. And I think, to your point too, like, you're going to see more and more men's and women's programs of the same school reach the Final Four, whether that's Division I, II, or III. And you saw the Tufts men's program and wasn't able to be side by side with the Tufts women's program. And I think it's an opportunity that was missed out on for sure.
Which also hurts. I mean, so the lacrosse community is so small. So you have like family members on different teams, which is so difficult when you're having to choose. And now we're seeing like the national championship team from Maryland from 20 years ago was honored at halftime. You may have to pick and choose, where you're going, the alumni base. It would just be it makes it a lot more fun. I think there's a way to do it. I mean, certainly the logistics with hotel rooms and some other, like all the other things that need to be considered, but even the drivable. I mean, for Foxborough, there's people staying in Boston. Charlotte, you did the drive.
Yeah.
40 minutes away. Like we can extend the radius a little bit to get, to make it work.
Sheehan, before we let you go, we can't let you go through this entire summer where you have a million camps, lacrosse camps for your kids without getting your favorite memories from the year, because you've already admitted that you black out everything. So by the time we're together again for next season,
we'll never remember.
You're not going to remember a single thing that happened this year. So forget on the field, off the field with us in the booth. Like, let's give the people watching this right now a little behind the scenes. Like, what will you remember from, or at least what do you remember right now from the three of us, all the antics that we have, whether it's at the ACCs or Champ Weekend this past weekend?
The laughs, like I truly generally it is really fun. Jay, I like to push your buttons and give you a hard
very
time.
good at it.
Yeah, so that is very enjoyable. I try not to push Charlotte's buttons. I think just some of the sometimes the communication we have with our eyes of just whether it was great play, bad play.
Yes,
A
we're
word I
speaking
made
the
up,
same
possibly. I'm not sure what what's happening. That's fun. I don't know if we've had any major bloopers in terms of opens or anything. Anything crazy.
No, it was a pretty clean year in terms of that. Yeah,
smooth. Just the inside jokes,
Yeah.
The funny, I think the Mrs. Burch thing that stands out to me also because as I thought that you were felt not comfortable calling me by my first name because I was an elder stateswoman. So, and then realizing that was a joke from my 10-year-old little friend that said, why is Mrs. Burch sitting so close to that man? Who was Jay?
Yeah,
so that I love. I mean, even to Jay, lifting up the 100-pound fence that we could, so we could get
Stay
into
tuned, you guys. Stay tuned. You'll see behind the scenes of that.
Yes.
I loved you showing
Banter.
up. Yeah, the banter. I loved you showing up in your first lady attire.
Yeah.
And putting the American flag pin. I'm going to remember that for a long time. Also, people thinking that you and Charlotte were drinking alcohol on the air because you were drinking Celsius.
Yes.
And newsflash, folks, Celsius does not contain alcohol. It does contain a lot of caffeine, which I'm personally not allowed to have. But no, Sheehan and Charlotte don't drink on the air, or at least not yet.
How do you think we're supposed to get through a quadruple header of the ACC tournament without a little bit of caffeine, Jay?
I think some news station could pick us up though for a New Year's ball drop or something. We can make that work. Yes.
And Sheehan is the president, and I will be the secretary, ready to go.
No, it really is a lot of fun, and what I enjoy most about working with you guys is the text I get throughout the championship game and throughout the season, but a lot of eyeballs on the championship with it being on main ESPN is our energy and our enjoyment and passion for the game does shine through on the broadcast. It was, I got so many texts. I love listening to Sheehan and Charlotte. You can tell how passionate they are for the game, and you can't replicate that. We are genuinely passionate. We do genuinely like each other and like to have a good time. So it was really fun that got to shine through, in addition to just watching outstanding play, which we obviously got throughout the weekend as well.
Sheehan likes us until we both have jersey mics, and she's sitting in between us because the order is usually Jay on the left, Sheehan in the middle, me on the right, and then we squish her with all of our food and beverages.
The meals, we were fed quite well this season. I have to say they and a variety of foods. That was fun. The Caesar salad dressing
Oh yes,
was a good one.
A lot of mishaps.
Jay,
a lot of mishaps.
I was taking back, and I did say you spit on me, and I did smell something, and it may have been your spit, but then I thought, I think it could have been the rain, and I might have.
No, we were covered.
Accused you.
We were covered.
No, there was a wind.
We were covered in that Gillette Stadium booth.
When you touched my forehead to guarantee and said I needed a blanket or a towel to wipe it down, then I was like, okay, I'm not just imagining things, but I
that was so much fun.
Oh my god!
Why do we have to wait until February?
This
is really unfortunate.
I know. Maybe we'll just have to have Mrs. Burch back on the lacrosse rundown.
Yes.
Anytime.
You're the best, Sheehan. You're the best. Thanks
Everyone,
for coming on.
Make sure you like and subscribe.
Yes, you heard the president, Mrs. Birch.
And
Make sure
Charlotte,
you like and
we will
subscribe.
have a new behind the scenes from the Final Four day, right? The 2 semifinal day. We will have another behind the scenes. So.
Even better. Honestly, we love sharing the behind the scenes with you guys. But for our own memory, since Sheehan mentioned she blacks out everything once we grab the mics, for our own memory to look back on, these are special days, special memories, and we have a lot of fun together.
Sheehan, no Statue of Liberty this year. Last national championship, you were frozen in time for 2 minutes, so there was no Statue of Liberty.
We'll pull up the picture right here. We'll pull up the picture.
Yeah. That was sad that we didn't have an ending like that, because that was an epic ending. That was a great memory too, where we didn't know we were being filmed, and all of a sudden we got sent like our reactions, which you think like it was like an out of body experience. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that what was happening in those final seconds and everything. It was a lot of fun. It goes by so quickly. I mean, when you look at the beginning schedule, you're like, oh my gosh, like how is this season going to unfold? And then all of a sudden we're end of May and the season's done.
It's wild. It's so wild. I'm sad it's over, but it was an unbelievable season. So thanks, Mrs. Birch, for coming on. This is the first, but definitely not even close to the last. You're stuck as a member of the Lacrosse Rundown, and we can't wait to have you back.
Fingers crossed, I'm asked back.
Open invitation, Sheehan. You're
Always.
the best. We love you.
Okay, take care, guys.
Sheehan Stanwick Burch is going to be hosting the Tewaaraton later this week. And you heard her say it. It is wide open. That is the first question. And the most times we get, the biggest question we get is who's going to win the Tewaaraton. And even the host of it, Sheehan Stanwick Burch, doesn't have a clear answer. I do think it is a 50-50 proposition, Charlotte, between Chloe and Madison Taylor.
I cannot wait to see it unfold. And of course, the Hall of Famer, Sheehan Stanwick Burch, emceeing it like the GOAT always does. But it's just seriously so much fun every lacrosse season to get to call these games with you guys. And more importantly, the stuff that people don't see is just talking with you guys every week, breaking down things that have happened, what we think about certain things, what we're excited to watch. And a lot of that comes from you guys who watch this show and who come here on Tuesday nights at 8:00. We appreciate you guys being there for our live show at Gillette Stadium at Vineyard Vines. That was unbelievable, and it's because of you guys. So we really appreciate you guys being here, chatting with us, being a part of the community. You're just as much a part of this journey as we are. So we're lucky to have such an awesome crew of you guys.
And we want to hear from you. What off-season topics do you want to tackle? So put it in the chat. Once this episode is over, throw in what you want Charlotte and I to talk about. Because even though the games are done, we still have a lot that we want to talk about as we continue to push this sport forward and really be the voice of the sport. And that comes from what you guys want to talk about. Charlotte, a ton of things that I got during the championship game was we should do an episode dedicated to lacrosse for beginners, truly explaining all the intricacies of the sport, like closest to the ball when it goes out of bounds, and some of the whistles that in the midfield, right? I do think that would benefit some of our newcomers, and we love those that have just recently found the sport and are using the Lacrosse Rundown to help educate what is, in my opinion, the most exciting sport there is out there right now.
Yeah, we could talk about this sport for forever. So just because the college season's coming to an end does not mean that this awesome community ever comes to an end, because we'll always be here every week talking about lacrosse, and we're doing it with you guys. So not just us, but some fun guests, some great topics. We can assure you of that, and a fun time talking with you guys. But we cannot thank you guys enough. We want to hear what you guys think. And of course, as we head into summer lacrosse, maybe you're playing somewhere, you're playing with a club team, you're traveling, you're at tournaments, but we've got international lacrosse going on with all the countries. We've got many, many different events, and we've got the PLL season, and we've got the WLL All-Star Game. So we've got a lot of professional and international lacrosse to break down, to talk about with you guys, to hear your thoughts, what you're watching, and things that you want to learn about the sport, because we would love to share this game with new fans, and then we'd also love to dissect it with current fans and continue to help grow it. So we appreciate you guys always, always, always. And it was another great episode with a legendary guest, the third member of our expansive crew. Got to get Dana Boyle, Rachel DeCecco, and the rest of the crew on here at some point soon too. But unbelievable to have the Hall of Famer, Mrs. Burch, here. And Jay, always a pleasure.
This is the best, Charlotte, and I'm sad that the college season is over, but you mentioned it. So much lacrosse still to be played this summer, including you. You get to put on the cleats again, pick up the stick. We are so excited to see Charlotte North on the field, and we'll break that down in a future episode as well. Charlotte, the player, I think she's an unbelievable broadcaster, but let's be honest. Whenever we get to see her on the field, it's even better.
You're the best. You're the best. I'm excited. Summer lacrosse is the best. It's warm out. Everybody is out there on a field smiling, enjoying time with their teammates. Truly the best. We might be a little bit biased, but we think it's the best sport in the world, and we can't wait to keep breaking it down with you guys. Until next Tuesday, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment with what you want us to talk about and tackle this off season. We want to hear from you guys. You guys are the entire reason we do this. So we appreciate it, and we'll see you next Tuesday.